Dead essay was titled Two Peas. My great-grandpa Luna and I may have quite the age difference, but from day one, we were two peas in a pod. I could sit and listen to him recount his memories for hours. Although his wild stories always took place outdoors, he spent the majority of his white-haired years indoors. On occasion, he sat on the porch to feed the squirrels and watch his Jack Russell Terrier bark at the neighbors' children and passing cars. Grandpa usually sat on a wooden chair cushioned with an old off-white pillow where he either yelled at the television or made snide comments about the reporters and government. He did not need anyone to hear, he just had to say it for himself. As I walked in the door one day, I heard his usual, "Oh my God, there my beautiful girls are." The scent of his Marlboro cigarettes perpetually filled the air and burned my lungs. My throat stung enough that I knew my eyes would be watering by the end of the night. The lighting was dim, and there was a yellow film on the walls and decor from the chemicals in the cigarettes. My great-grandpa Luna lived with his daughter, my grandma, because she took care of him. He liked his meals home-cooked, and while she denies ever having the ability to cook, she always made him delicious hot meals. The companionship worked well for them because Grandma was divorced and Great-Grandpa's wife had already passed away before I was born. My mother rarely left us with her mom to babysit us because she knew the smoke was bad for our asthmatic lungs. That night, no one else could watch us, so we sat on the couch and ate Arby's while Grandma thumbed through her magazines. Fox 8 was turned up so loud that we could barely hear the storm outside. The light flickered a few times before fading out, and my sister and I started wailing. Grandma did not handle crisis very well, and she began to panic because she did not know how to calm us down. Now, it's just a storm," she said. They were not the comforting words we were seeking, but Grandpa found a flashlight to light up a lantern that he kept stashed on top of a dusty shelf. While I could not hear what he said from across the room, the tone of his comforting voice got me to stop crying. His voice was raspy from years of smoking, but it was thick with wisdom. It was the kind of wisdom that comes from living through all of life's bumps and turns. If Grandpa was calm, I could be too, because he, of all people, would know when to relax and when to panic. He sat in his green recliner in the living room, and we knew he was going to begin one of his stories. He said, "You know, this feels just like home when I was your age. It does. We never had electricity." He relaxed into the chair as he delved into nostalgia. He was comforted by the power outage, and that boggled my young and afraid mind. He began again. "When I was your age, I was running barefoot and hunting squirrels for dinner." He then told us the story of how he was quietly stepping through the woods with a bow and arrow that he made himself, and he could never feel anything under his rough and calloused feet. He saw some squirrels and stood statue still. He started feeling sharp pains in his feet, and as he moved, he realized he was standing on a wasp's nest. He ran like the wind, even though he had already been stung several times. His mother treated it, and he went out the very next day to hunt squirrels again, and got 4 more than usual. He told us that it was like life, because sometimes something can surprise you, but even if it is bad, you have to keep going so that something better can happen. Despite having fought in World War II, Grandpa laughed more than anyone else I knew. I had thought every soldier would be solemn or anxious, but those were 2 feelings I had never seen on my grandpa. Even when he talked about the war, he was his silly self. My dad said, when your sister had a report to do on the war in 2nd grade, he bluntly told her that he was trudging knee-deep through blood and dead bodies. He said, "Shoot, everywhere you looked, everyone was dead." While it sounded so serious, he laughed after he said it. When Grandpa laughed, everyone laughed. His laugh was partly just coughing and wheezing due to his packs and packs of cigarettes he smoked, but it was still the most contagious laugh. When he laughed, even his wrinkles laughed. My dad also went on to say, he was raised in Mississippi. He was a true Southern boy. He talked like one, too. I always thought it was some sort of myth that Southern folks used the word shoot with that drawl the way Grandpa actually did. It was true, and for some reason Grandpa's drawls and phrases had always made me giggle. He never failed to say 2 particular phrases, and they were, "Good, nutritious food," and "Shoot, you're so goddamn gorgeous." My dad said, he always said, good, nutritious food. It was something of a ritual before we ate. You could tell he always appreciated his food. I think it was because if he wanted to eat when he was growing up, he had to shoot, skin, and cook his own rabbit or squirrel. Grandpa never had leftovers. However, he occasionally shared with the dog. Another great part of Grandpa's appreciation for food was that he never made me feel bad about what or how much I was eating. Most people did criticize my food intake, which ended up contributing to an eating disorder because I already felt bad about myself. Grandpa encouraged individuality and always made me feel loved and special. He was everything my own father was not, so I became closer with my grandpa than my own parents. My parents just could not provide me with the same feelings that my grandpa did, and they neglected me for the majority of my childhood. As a fairly lonely child, I was very grateful to have a friend. While some memories I have are small and insignificant to some, they are everything to me. When I was in 5th grade, my mom picked me up from school, and I recognized that we were not on our way home or to Grandpa's. For a very rare second, she gave off maternal vibes as she carefully considered her word choice. She then confessed that Grandpa was in hospice. She gently explained hospice is like a nursing home for people who aren't going to stay very long. As a nurse who dealt with elderly deaths every day, she was shockingly sensitive with me about it. Grandpa looked very different in his hospital gown. You could no longer see his large belly. Even though I had never seen him drink alcohol, his belly was proof he liked beer. When he opened his eyes, he realized I was there. I knew that if he had the strength, he would have shouted how beautiful I was. All he was capable of was weakly pushing the oxygen mask and mumbling. My aunt had invited me to stay the night on the couches with her, my cousin, and my grandpa, but when I wistfully looked up at my mother, I knew the answer. She was already shaking her head. He peacefully passed away in his sleep that night. I do not have many strong memories of my childhood, and when I start digging it up, I get sick over the bad memories. My grandpa was always the one thing that kept me going. No matter how fuzzy or fleeting the memories are, they are important to me. Through many years of battling depression, the happy memories have given me the hope and the strength to stay alive. I knew I wanted to be like my grandpa from the time I was little because whenever he told a story about his past, his whole face lit up. I wanted to be that happy when I thought about my past too, and I wanted other people to laugh with me like they did with him. He told us, "You'll never have wild adventures by sitting inside. You'll only have them in the great outdoors." To follow in his footsteps after he passed away, I wore his warm, old camouflage coat and work boots outside in search of an adventure. In that attire, I shot my first deer, caught my first catfish, and had many great memories of sneaking out of the house to ride my horse in the middle of the night. I have happy memories to look back on now, thanks to the lifelong lessons and memories my great-grandpa Luna taught me.